is pretty cool because it's been a lot of years in the making. But I've been a mastering engineer for the last 15 years, mostly working out of the Bay Area, and then about 2 years ago I moved to Nashville. And part of that trip to Nashville came from, originally I actually lost my dad really unexpectedly. And I had been working with some partners in Oakland, and we opened a little tiny record plant, and it failed very famously. And right when you know my dad was trying to help me get out of that mess, he died. And at that point I said, you know what? I am no longer waiting for someone else to help me get to where I want to be with making a record plant. I am no longer waiting for someone to show me how to do something. I'm going to go figure it out myself, and I'm going to go and raise the money I need to do it, and I'm going to go do it in a place that's easier than the Bay Area. I'll tell you more about why I started this plant, but that was like a really, really pivotal moment for me, and it was 3 years ago this March. And the biggest thing that keeps going through my head every single day is every time I bring someone in that's supposed to know more than I do, I'm able to learn what it is that they are trying to tell me, and then able to expand on it, and then ask them to expand with me, and none of them want to go any further. They're like, this is what I do, this is what I know, if you think you know something different, fuck you. And at this point, we were able to build out a much bigger plant than we even originally planned. And at this point, I've had to basically fire everybody that we originally hired to build this thing. So from the ground up, every inch of paint, every part of the building, every machine, me and my team, we've built it ourselves. And one of the most difficult parts of this is being able to find the right community and being able to find the right folks that are like-minded in this endeavor, because most of the time in the record industry it's manufacturing. Nobody thinks about how to support the next group of folks that are going to maybe run this plant. Nobody thinks about the next the next record press operators don't have to be an old dude that has been in the industry forever. Nobody thinks about the fact that we can actually further knowledge through documentation, data, using the tools that we have access to nowadays, and try and make records even better. I know we're probably moving on here, but the biggest thing that I'm trying to do with this plant is to be able to further the technology to make better records, and the only way to do that is to bring in new perspectives, diversity into the industry, and to bring in especially as many women as I can possibly bring in, because I already had a lifetime of trying to further women in tech, women in audio, and spending many hours mentoring and on committees trying to build this stuff. And as Linda and I know at this point, no one's going to do it for us, sometimes not even with us. We have to do it ourselves. We have to drive it forward ourselves.
Piper is printing out surfboards, vinyl, so I'm so excited. And you just did a run of Dolly Parton.
I don't think we're supposed to say that.
Oh shit, sorry, take that. I didn't say Dolly Parton, I meant Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama.
The Dalai Lama, yes.
Is making an album. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Scratch that. I didn't know I was messing. I done that. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to do now is just kind of ask some questions and see what kind of response I get. And when I'm hearing all of your stories, I'm wondering if is it possible that women limit themselves? Is it possible that the reason the numbers aren't so big is because a woman isn't going to, like, before I got here, I've been working on this score. I barely have slept. I make time to get home to my son. I get dinner with him. We hang out. He goes to bed. I ask the nanny to stay, and then I go back to work. I was working till 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. on Sunday and got picked up at 6:45 in the morning to come here. Now, is it possible that not every woman wants to live that kind of lifestyle? And is it possible that the reason the numbers are small, again, just asking a question, Are the numbers small because women's tolerance of what they want to do, maybe that's not the lifestyle they want to live?
No. I'll give one perspective, and for me coming up, I didn't know that this was a career. Like, to be a mastering engineer and to then, go into audio, and there were no other women that were in my cohort in school. There were hardly any women to take a look at, so I didn't even know that it was a thing. But once I did get into it, I knew nothing else. Like, if you're here, you gotta work. Whether you're a dude or a lady or whatever. It is a very hard industry to be in and exist in and make a living to begin with. And so if you're not here to hustle, and you're not here to work your ass off, you have to do it. Now, is that a choice that we all have to make? Yes. Is it something that is an easy choice to miss birthdays and miss family vacations and everything? No, it's not easy, but it's something that we all have to do. And so I don't think that it's just because women are not made for this.
Not what I said. I guess a simpler way, is it gender or choice?
It's hard for everyone. That's what I think.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I didn't want to create feedback. I think there's also, from my perspective and experience, I think it's also a sort of conditioned confidence thing, because I've been doing these little eco documentaries telling the stories of these Californian initiatives, again in the environmental art space, using the guitar as a vehicle, and then sort of breaking the guitar apart, looking at the wood, and telling the story of this urban wood initiative, which I won't go into now. But and then there's also the abalone on the guitar. There is currently 5% of the kelp forests along the Californian coast and the abalone population that we had even 15 years ago. So I've been working with NOAA and various other organizations to do these rewilding initiatives and tell those stories. And I've been trying to have all women be the voices of these stories, whether it's oceanographers or marine biologists or guitar makers. I want it to be women. And the thing I found is these people, these incredible people that have such expert knowledge and know their shit, are so much more nervous about saying something that might not be 100% right than times I've spoken to men in similar fields where they'll just be like, yeah, I think so. And so I think there's a natural nervousness that women have, that if they don't do something that is absolutely exact, they'll be called up for it.
Sally, what do you think?
I definitely agree with that. I think, is it possible that we look at ourselves? Yes, absolutely. And I think it is a conditioning thing, because coming up, there's just so much more on the line for us, I guess. There's so few of us, and we have to do everything perfectly, because otherwise we're judged 10 times harder, because oh yeah, because she's a woman, obviously, ha ha ha, because there's 10 other men in the room. And I think one thing that someone asked me, it happened to be a man at a record label, and he said, do you want a family or do you want a career? And I said, why do I have to choose? And he's like, well, you can't be a boss in what you do and also have a kid and have a husband and have whatever you want. And I said, but why is that a choice I have to make? You can do it all. I think there's just sacrifice, right? You have to go home to see your son, have dinner with him, and then go back to the studio, and you're sacrificing sleep in that situation. I think it's harder for us because not that men don't care or whatever, but we just care more innately, and I think that might make it possible for us to limit ourselves and say, oh, maybe I have to choose my career over having a family. But I personally think you can have both. It just makes you work a little bit harder. And there's situations where, growing up, we deal with Mother Nature and things that might take anyone else out of the game with how it feels sometimes that 1 week per month. But I don't know anything different. So that week, I'll just take more Tylenol and then I push through. But imagine someone that doesn't deal with that and having to deal with that maybe that 1 week a month. They'll die. They couldn't do what we do. And to me, I choose to look at that and allow it to give me more strength.
This is a true story. So, I have a studio. I'm a famous producer. People know me, right? Right? Okay. I can't seem to find a girl to come and work at my studio. I put out ads. I've asked people. I've asked different communities. Moving the Needle, Wham, She's the Music. I've asked everybody, and I cannot get a woman to show up at my studio to work with me as, you know, a runner. Like you gotta start you as an assistant runner, but why? What the fuck is with that? And all I can say is I guess what I'm saying is I hear you, I hear everybody. Now, let's take that percentage and break that percentage down. What if the percentage of, so we're saying 27% of women are in the music. How many of them are good? Let's just break that part down, because that doesn't mean %, not that many that are going to go over the fucking top.
Not yet.
To make it happen.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's why we're doing this, right? So that's more my question. Like, I fucking sat in a studio when my band Four Non Blondes, and I came to the producer and I said, I don't know what it is, but I fucking hate the way my voice sounds. It sounds thin and it sounds really affected, and that's not me. I'm raw, I'm edgy, I got punk rock in me. And he is like, this is his words, Linda, can't you just be an artist and let me do what I'm going to do? Now, I heard the same story about Axl Rose. Axl Rose was considered a leader and somebody who knew what he wanted to do with his career. I was difficult and he was a leader. I don't understand that. So I guess what my question is saying the same thing. How many women how many women would have been said that to that would have just backed off and said, you know what? Fuck you. I'm not gonna tolerate this. And how many women are gonna fucking go in there and fucking take your shoe and fucking kick some guy in the balls? That's me. But not many women are gonna do that. So that's my question.
So I used to teach college audio, and it was remarkable because I remember back to when I was in school and I was one of very few women in our program, and the only one in my grade, my cohort. And I think about now when I go back to teach these classes and I see 2 or 3 or 4 women in the classes, I'm like, okay, cool. We've quadrupled in 15 years since I was in school. We've quadrupled how many women are there. Now, if we can just quadruple that and again and again and again, we have, like are big numbers, right? To what Sally was saying, it's like how you have to work twice as hard to have the same amount of success, and you always have to be right every time. Now, I'm not that way. I'm pretty aloof. I'm like, this is who I am. I'm going to go for what I want, and I'm going to do it. And when I realized that I was someone that was being approached to speak on panels like this, to lead, organizations and be on committees and try and make change, I was very much a reluctant leader. And one of the things that we need right now in the audio industry especially, and music industry in general, is having actual leaders like these folks on stage that are doing it and actually working hard and actually trying to make change rather than just trying to fund the next year of programming for the nonprofit or trying to come out and make a big PR push. There are people that are actually doing stuff. And that was not in existence when I was coming up. It was like two organizations, and they didn't have a lot to show for it. But I think the biggest thing is right now, you have to show women that they are able to do whatever they want, and they have to have leaders to look to.
Thank you, Piper. Thea, women supporting or women competing?
It's interesting. In my experience, both in corporate and in music, we've got kind of a combination of things going on. The first one is that, we're still seeing, a table of people and there are 6 guys and 1 woman. And they may not know the answer, but they'll shout out their opinion, and women won't. I've done a lot of interviewing in my world because I worked in corporate, and we would put out job offerings. You're talking about job postings, right? We would put out job postings, and we would get 30 resumes from men and 2 from women. And guess what? It's not because they weren't out there. It's because the women made sure that they checked every single box that was on that listing, right? And the guys were like, I meet one of those 12 requirements, I'm qualified, and they would just go ahead and put in their resume. Whereas if the women didn't have every single checkbox on those 12 things, they wouldn't put in their resume. So just showing up and giving yourself credit for what you do know instead of what you think you don't know is a big one. That to me is huge. Number 2, and it's something that a lot of people don't talk about in the industry, especially women are taught many times not to talk about it, and I love Taylor Swift, the money.